Okay, I think I will ask the question from our panelists. So from the questions that we have from the audience, I will start with Professor Samia Henni. We have, sorry, I lost the file of the questions. So, okay, it's here. Professor Samia Henni, so the question is, do you consider France's nuclear program in Algeria a continuation of its colonial extractivism, this time not through economic resources, but through the appropriation of land for technological and military experimentation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I would push it even further. I think it's the continuity of coloniality and colonialism, since radioactivity does not, disappear with the end of the detonation of the bombs. Apparently, according to some scientists, it's we say it's a half-life. Half-life is about 240,000 years, but these scientists are also saying that since the first detonation of the first bomb, so on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we don't have the still 240,000 years of time, so we don't know. It can be really, it is irreversible. It's forever. There is really the temporality of colonial toxicity. It's extremely long, if not one can say it's infinite. So yes, it's definitely the almost French colonialism continues living in the bodies of people in Algeria, but also in the Sahara, Africa, and also French veterans in a way. That's radioactivity can radiate anytime, and it's also intergenerational, so they are transmitting some of the diseases that they are having also to their own children. So yes, absolutely, it's about land, but also all environmental, meaning the crops, water, air, particles, and of course the bodies of people there. I can't hear you. Maybe that is me. Oh my God.
Sorry.
No,
it was my microphone. Don't worry, you're okay. Yeah, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you so much for the response. That's very true. What we're witnessing is definitely a continuation of the same colonialism. The next question is for Professor Rosa, Elizabeth Rosa. In your opinion, what reasons led North Korea as a nuclear power to consider the existing legal mechanisms in the field of nuclear control ineffective and to withdraw from the NPT?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. I tried to get together my thoughts. It is a complicated one, and one should know more about North Korea and its security position, but there are several elements. North Korea is in a very difficult place. On the one hand, especially in the Cold War, we had North Korea, South Korea on the Korean Peninsula. At some points, there were even negotiations between the two countries to make the Korean Peninsula nuclear weapon-free zone. Although there was some agreement signed, it was not implemented as far as I know. But on the one hand, there was the Soviet Union, now Russia and China. On the other hand, there is South Korea and Japan with their specific security arrangements with the United States, this major non-NATO ally status and this security umbrella. So this is one thing, one element. The other element is that North Korea was, frankly speaking, caught red-handed. The International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors were coming to do their inspections, and they found that they didn't find plutonium in the spent fuel of the Yongbyon nuclear reactor. now, in the plutonium, you cannot find on the globe at all. It is being produced in the nuclear process within the nuclear reactor. It is a byproduct, or it is part of the rubbish, you can say. But it is much more dangerous, much more proliferation dangerous than uranium itself. Plus, there are other problems with it. You don't know how to store it because its halving life is 24,000 years. I don't have time to wait for 24,000 years till its irradiation disappears. So this was another element, that it was a public shame internationally that North Korea was found guilty in breaking its commitments under the NPT, the non-proliferation treaty. That was another element. The third one was the very difficult economic situation, and when North Korea was caught red-handed, and then it announced that it would leave the NPT. In principle, the NPT has this legal option. A state can announce that I am leaving the NPT, I am withdrawing from the NPT, but that state has to give reasons, has to justify with very good reasons why it is leaving. And then there is a 6 months period in the course of which the international community may try to persuade it, don't do it. Now, there were such negotiations. These were going on not even for 6 months, but there was the so-called KADO, which is the Korean Economic Development Organization, which was a long series of negotiations between the US, Japan, South Korea, and North Korea, trying to give benefits, trying to give help and different structures, different support to North Korea, and in the course of this even transform this Yongbyon nuclear installation into a civilian usable something. So these were all happening, but then in the very end, North Korea decided to leave and finally withdraw from the NPT, which the international community doesn't like at all. North Korea is the one and only country so far that has left the NPT. I am fully aware that especially following the 12-day war, when Israel and the US attacked Iran, and what's more, attacked nuclear installations in Iran, nuclear sites in Iran, which was really very, very tough, even looking at it from the far away part of the world. I know that there has been some discussion that maybe Iran should withdraw from the NPT. However, at the precise moment, it seems that this system is still operating, and it is still, I don't know, maybe worth it to be in it, better to be in it than to be out of it. And North Korea is an example. And one more issue, if one more sentence or point that I may raise, is that with regard to nuclear deterrence, that Professor Zafar was supposed to speak, many people said that, well, yes, North Korea is the example that proves that if you have nuclear weapons, that no one dares to attack you. I would just like to remind all of you, and myself included, that Israel has nuclear weapons, and still that was no reason that Hamas did not attack it. So it means that nuclear weapons may give you some kind of protection or deterrence, but is not an answer to each and every type of what do you do with a non-state actor, right? Or what do you do with a different type of threat? So this is why the international is hesitant very much, and I'm sure that this question will be very high on the agenda next year on the NPT review conference.
Thank you. There's one more question for you, Professor, and that's, I think part of it you have addressed, but I will just repeat the question. There are two more questions, and I will read both of them to you, and you can answer. So one is, how do deterrence theory and nuclear armed power dynamics shape current international security expectations? And the next one for you is, what lessons can be drawn from past disarmament experiences, such as the NPT, the Chemical Weapons Convention, or regional arms control, in terms of building trust and verifiable compliance?
Well, should I give a seminar here for a week or so? I'm afraid these are
Yeah,
really
that's like a
very valid questions, very, very good questions, and questions that have been debated in the past 50, 60 years, ever since nuclear weapons have been first used, or even before when only nuclear scientists were discussing these issues among themselves. So, personally, I am coming from a country which belonged to the Warsaw Treaty Organization. So, in principle, it was under the umbrella of the Soviet nuclear capability. However, I have to say that in our side, in the Warsaw Treaty Organization, there was no discussion at all of having nuclear weapons, only so the Soviet Union could have them. In NATO, there was a lot of debates about nuclear sharing. There were 3 NATO members that had the weapons. So how does deterrence work? We concluded when the Cold War ended here, we concluded that nuclear weapons had in the Cold War one and only real result, which was nuclear deterrence. But we concluded that nuclear weapons are there not to be used. But this was the conclusion after the Cold War. When nuclear weapons went down, how should I say, went down to a regional level, we had India and Pakistan. We see that between India and Pakistan, the declaration of this nuclear weapon capability really did have a pacifying impact on the relations of the two countries. We have Israel, which doesn't say, yes, I do, doesn't say, no, I don't, doesn't say anything. North Korea, we have. The biggest problem that I see is that still, in spite of all this, it seems that nuclear non-proliferation so far did work. And one reason was the advantages that you can get to. Do you want to have peaceful civilian uses of nuclear energy, or you don't want to? Because this is the area where many things may happen. So if you abide by your treaty obligations, the inspectors are coming, they are inspecting, and so on and so forth, then you have access to the free access to the civilian use of nuclear material, equipment, technologies. And I think that this is what is important. What we sell to this country, we don't sell to the other country. And the international community still sticks to this kind of cooperation. It is very difficult nowadays to say it because technical development has gone very, very far away. And when I'm sure that students here also would say, if we were sitting face to face in a class, they would say, okay, but you open the Wikipedia or you open the internet, you ask ChatGPT how to produce a nuclear weapon. Yes, but you don't have the materials, you don't have the installation, you don't have the site, you don't have the technical knowledge to do it. And it is not like that, okay, I'm going to the kitchen, let's do pancake because it's Friday night. So this is very much different. So I'm sure that the persons who ask this would say that I am just speaking and not saying anything. I have to tell you that I still believe that we are better off without nuclear weapons. I still believe, and I am talking a lot about Iran and the Iranian nuclear program here in Hungary, and I am the one who I am saying that, yes, but we have the nuclear fatwa. Yes, we have the technical capability. Iran is technically very, very much ahead of almost all the other nations in the region. Iran could do the civilian, we have the nuclear power plant, we have the different installations, we have the knowledge, the know-how, but I still think, and let me be very personal, that for Iran, it is still better to be within the NPT. It gives you still a better protection. Say that to the Israelis, of course. But still, I
Okay.
can say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that also addressed some other audience's question. I have two questions for Professor Farnia. Of course, there are more questions, but because of the time limit, I can't really pose more than two. So I'm trying to get the ones that cover more of the topics that our audience have asked. So Professor Farnia, the question that the audience have asked you, one of them is, do you see a connection between the discourse of terrorism, which is often employed against non-Western nations, and the politics of nuclear arms control? And I will ask you the second question after you answer this one, because it's not very related.
Okay, yes. Thank you for the question. Yes, I do, in short, see a relationship between the discourse on terror and the policies and dictates of nuclear arms control. I think has been outlined by other speakers, and you yourself, Professor, who are the countries that perhaps don't have like limitations, or it didn't initially have limitations on nuclear arms control, are the same countries that were and continue to be the imperialist powers of the world. The United States, Britain, and France, right, are the primary purveyors of this sort of relationship. The discourse on terror also derives from these countries calling the subjects of colonialism and the victims of imperialism terrorists, right? So this is not a coincidence, and that is why, like, I argue that there's a through line of race and global white supremacy that sort of permeates this discussion of imperialism and all of its manifestations, including in international law and nuclear proliferation or non-proliferation. I'll also add really quickly that I believe others can speak on this better, but South Africa under apartheid pursued nuclear development. And after the apartheid regime fell, after majority rule by a Black government was established, South Africa was forced to dismantle its nuclear program. So what does it mean that the apartheid regime that carried out all these atrocities, that called the resistance terrorists, right, was able, under international law, or under the law that is sort of dictated by imperialism, able to pursue nuclear development, whereas a Black-led government is not able to do so, right? That's a contradiction. That's a racial contradiction.
Thank you. And the second question for you, as I said, there are more questions, but we need to just keep with this and wrap up with this last question. Do you think the U.S. approach to nuclear governance through sanctions, coercive diplomacy, and technological embargoes can be viewed as a form of scientific dependency rather than traditional military intervention?
So again, thank you for the question. I view like sanctions, embargoes as part of like a hybrid war against Iran and other countries that are victimized by sanctions and targeted by sanctions. So it's not necessarily, obviously, direct military intervention, but sanctions and these other forms of economic warfare ripen the conditions in these countries for military intervention. And Libya is an example that I referred to in my talk, where sanctions gradually wore Libya down over time, economically devastated the country, and created the conditions where the imperialist NATO could invade Libya in 2011. Syria is another very recent example, right, where the Syrian state was degraded over decades by sanctions, economically devastated, the Syrian state unable to sustain itself, and therefore, like, it created the conditions where, for even like the Syrian Arab army was not even able to receive adequate payment in terms of salaries, right? To where, in that respect, morale was affected, and all these realities therefore created the conditions where Syria could then be undermined by Western proxy forces, the Takfiri forces, right, that are now in power in Syria, and they're supported by the West. So I view that as a continuity. The economic sort of mechanisms and traditional military intervention as a sort of a continuity and part of a larger hybrid war against countries like Iran, Syria, Libya, Cuba, Venezuela, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, Professor Farnia. I will ask one more question from Professor Samia Henni, and then we'll wrap it up, I promise. Professor, in your view, to what extent does the French approach to its former colonies, particularly Algeria, still carry traces of a colonial hierarchy? And on a personal level, have you encountered family memoirs or community testimonies that reflect how this historical asymmetry is remembered in Algerian collective conscious? Please.
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the relationship between the two countries are still today, very, very intense. The question of the nuclear weapons program testing is very politicized. I mean, both countries use it for their own, let's say, interests, but still none of the two are implementing the law of, decontamination and making people, live in dignity. But so to be very honest, I'm not sure about the hierarchy because it depends for what question, to be honest. I'm just thinking of a number of possibilities, to respond to this question. So if we talk about the question of archives, for example, yes, there is an issue of hierarchy. We don't know where the French buried most of those engines, cars, and radioactive and toxic matters, textiles, everything that they use, they buried them under the Sahara. Algeria, or the Algerian government, asked for the exact location of those let's say, cemeteries of radioactive matters, and they still don't have the exact location. So yes, there is there injustice, I would say, not even hierarchy, really. The question of oil and gas, if we speak of the Sahara as well, the French kept extracting, not only the French, the UK, the US, other Western country kept extracting oil and gas in the Sahara after the independence until 1970s, when Boumediene decided to nationalize those companies. So I think it really depends where do we want to focus on, because its case is very different, but there is still a complete, let's say, unbalanced relationship. But I would also say that the Algerian government, and specifically the Algerian military or army, are very well aware of some of the aspects, and both of those sides are using whatever they can in order to advance their agenda. But if we talk about the people, so the Shab, the people of Algeria, I think they have a very, very different stand, and there are a number of associations and NGOs, that have been asking for their rights since the detonation of the bomb. They are seeing also the deformation of or the malformation of kids that are born also in the region. So yeah, they have sometimes lawyers. They are using medical reports, etc. So I would say there are different, let's say, layers or categories of stakeholders, and I would say we should try to support the people, like the Algerian civil society, who are also in this equation, and they are also trying to defend their rights as much as they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I guess this is time to wrap the this very insightful panel. I thank all the panelists for their great presentation and for patiently staying and answering the questions from the audience. And I ask the audience for carefully following up and posing really interesting questions that added to the insights that we were receiving. I personally learned a lot, and I'm very I feel very honored and very happy to share this panel with the distinguished speakers and the enthusiastic audience that we had. I'm very sorry that we missed Professor Zafar's presentation. I was really looking forward to listening to it, but apparently he had more technical issues with his connections. We tried to contact him, and our organizers talked to him, but unfortunately it was not resolved. And I hope in future opportunities we will have him on again and we'll listen to his presentations. Thank you so much for this, the variety of the perspectives that you offered on the nuclear issue. I thank the organizers, the Institute of Human Rights at Isfahan University, and I'm looking forward to a lot more of these sessions that build a bridge between academics and the students and the society. خیلی ممنون از همه دوستان که تا این لحظه همراهی کردن، به خاطر سوالای خوبی که پرسیدین و متاسفانه ما نتونستیم پروفسور ظفر رو بهشون در واقع ارائهشون تا انتها گوش بدیم و امیدوارم که در فرصت‌های بعدی بتونیم از حضور ایشون استفاده بکنیم و مشکل اینترنت ایشون هم حل شده باشه. That's it, and I say goodbye to everyone and hope to see you all soon again. Goodbye. Have a nice rest of the day. خدا حافظ همگی.